Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome not just a very accomplished individual, but a very multifaceted professional from the world of academia, a well-known journalist, an activist, and an author from New Delhi, India, Madhu Purnima Kishwar. Madhuji, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this very unique show.
Thank you.
It's doing so well. I'm awe-inspired.
Thank you so much. Madhuji is the founder and editor of Manushi, which is a journal about women and society. She's a senior fellow at the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, a national professor at the Indian Council of Social Science and Research from 2017 to 2020. She's been a former professor at the Center for the Study of Developing Societies. She, in her own words, describes herself as a truth winger and a factarian. She's an author of 14 books and several papers and a TV personality. And given her kind of background, Madhuji has been recognized, felicitated, and awarded several times. So Madhuji, let me start by asking you my first question, which is what inspired you to start your journey in academic scholarship and social activism?
See, I don't see them as a part. Firstly, there is no one moment of inspiration, no person who guided me this way. I think it's to do with past karma. I am very convinced that I was part of many such movements for fixing all that went wrong in our society. Like, for example, I identify very closely with certain social reformers of 19th century. And in that case, I can even say, I think I must have been his daughter or a close colleague, Bala Devraj from Punjab. Right. Similarly, during the freedom movement, there are people that I identify with very closely. So I really think that the unfinished tasks of past births must have influenced my life, because nothing in my education, convent school, Miranda House, JNU, nothing in my formal education ever guided me in this direction. And my family just left me alone. I was very lucky. They left me to decide my own path. Even when I made blunders, they never put me down. So I think it's to do with past karma, which is what explains the fact that I decided not to get married. I decided that this life is for Bharat Ma. I have to prove myself worthy daughter of Bharat Ma before I stray into other things.
Oh, wonderful.
So post-independence generation idealism, I think, is what guided my life.
How amazing. Thank you. My next question is that, you have two very interesting terms, which are truth winger and factarian. For my viewers and listeners, help me understand these two terms and your perspective on these two words.
Ever since I entered college at the age of 16, I was confronted with sharply polarized ideological battles, left versus right, Congress versus BJP, then feminism versus non-feminist, and all kinds of isms that descended to us from the West. And honestly, I couldn't make sense of them. I could never, ever think in a polarized manner. And the instinct not to put my thinking into a box and think in that polarized manner is best illustrated by the fact that when, as a 17 or 18-year-old, I was first made Secretary Debating Society and then later President Debating Society of Miranda House. And as you well know, debates in India follow that typical Oxonian Cambridge University pattern: for or against. You're for the proposition or against the proposition. Even as an 18-year-old, I found that so stupid, so suffocating. Even though I won debates, but I was very unhappy. So after my first year as Secretary Debating Society, when I became president, the first thing I did was to abolish Debating Society, closed it, and called it Discussion Forum.
Okay.
And I explained it thus, that in order to think sensibly and speak with due application of mind, you have to take diverse shades of opinion as well as facts into account. Life is not about black versus white.
Right.
It's a rainbow colored affair. And therefore, from then on, I have been struggling very hard to stay out of the trap of ideologies which box your thinking and don't allow you to take ground reality into account, to take facts into account. That's where Factarian comes. I always say, I let facts guide my conclusions rather than the other way round. And when I say truth winger, what I mean is that to me, the commitment is to say it honestly, no matter how politically unfashionable, no matter what the price I have to pay for it. And I will stick to the truth as I see it at that point. And since truth is forever evolving, it's not final, it's not cut in stone. Therefore, very often you have to revise your position as new facts come to light. Most of my writing is all about, I thought XYZ in this particular year when I was writing about it, only so many facts were at my disposal. But now that I know little more, well, I've revised my opinion. So you don't castigate me for thinking something else at that time because I didn't know any better.
Correct. Well said. And you're so right about debating. I used to debate when I was at Hansraj College regularly, but this thought never crossed my mind. And now that you say it, you're so right. The for and against, that very, very powerful point. Thank you so much.
And then political parties do that, you see.
Yes.
The young people's minds are getting damaged because if you are pro-BJP, then you have to go along with them, no matter how disastrous some of their decisions may be. Or if you're pro-Congress or pro-left, you have to be a blind supporter. It's destructive of all creative thinking.
Correct.
And also integrity, personal integrity.
Very well said. So I'm going to now move a little bit and talk about your interest in Indic faith, Indic scriptures. What are some of the key insights from your studies of Indic faith traditions and civilizational studies that you can share with us? And I know this is a huge topic.
So let me give you not a very brief answer. But see, for me, what now is called Indic faith traditions. In fact, the first ever Indic Studies Conference was organized by me through the CSDS. That was way back in 2000, in the year 2000 or something. And Rajiv Malhotra had supported that conference. At that time, this word was not in circulation at all. And thereafter, another conference in 2005. It is a large international conference. However, my involvement with these issues did not come through any scriptural readings per se. There's nothing in my education prepared me for that. My involvement with the Indic worldview or the Hindu worldview came from my deep respect for my heritage to the extent I knew, my family, or the sanskars they gave me. And the sanskars of my family did not get nurturance by the formal education system at all. Secondly, the people of India, if you really are a patriot or you think you care for Desh and Dharma, or Desh, it started with that first, then the people of your country matter. Their views matter. See the ability to see life through their eyes, their problems through their eyes. So at a time when the left worldview used to be dominant, I used to find it very annoying that the leftists, that was my peer group, because they were the most active, they were the most well-educated people, and yet I ended up battling them because they thought that it was their job to educate the people of India and enlighten them what they should think and what they should want and what they should aspire towards becoming.
Right.
I found that extremely arrogant. And therefore, when we started Manushi, I was not yet using the word Indic or Hindu Dharma or any of that in those,
Right.
those ways in which they are being used today. But I said it very clearly. The purpose of Manushi is not to tell others, not to tell the women of India or the poor of India how they should fix their lives. But our purpose is to understand in all its complexity, their life situation through their eyes, their aspirations of what is good life, what they think will make their life better, and their value system,
Right.
according to which they define their way, their notion of good life. So it's through that that I learned to take people seriously. And in fact, that's the title of one of my very early articles in the very early issues of Manushi, early 80s, learning to take people seriously.
Right.
Now, the moment you learn to take people seriously, then very spontaneously and inevitably, you get to their core value systems. And Hindu Dharma, even in my growing up years, did guide the aspirations, the value system of our society, especially the majority Hindu society. Even though too many were becoming fashionable leftists, feminists, this, that, or the other. But another one of my very famous, controversial articles is why I do not call myself a feminist. And there I explained that it's not just about feminism, because it's an import, a mindless import at that. Problems are very different from the problems and the history of women's rights movements in the West. But I am averse to all isms simply because they box your thinking and they don't let you listen to diverse voices and diverse viewpoints, without which you can't arrive at a sensible conclusion. So it's through that process that this happened. Secondly, from my childhood, as I said, I was obsessed with Bharat Ma, Mother India, the wrongs done to Mother India, how it had been bled, and how its people had been brutalized. This was the guiding spirit behind whatever I did. Now, when people attacked, and the left attacks mindlessly, brutally, they're callous. Fighting then is in defense of from family composition, from marriage rituals, for anything. I was very sensitive, and I certainly felt extremely angry when either the foreign educated feminists, leftists, or even Western media would come to me for interviews and expect me to do Hindu bashing, India bashing. And I didn't think that that was the right way to display my progressive credentials. So I resisted that very instinctively. And the other was this resolve not to take foreign funding, not to take Sarkari funding. Because that's the only way you remain independent. Most of the agendas are coming to us from the West. And then even their foreign universities are mass producing professional Hindu bashers, self-hating Hindus, self-hating Indians. And I could not stomach that ecosystem.
Very well said.
And Sarkari, again, you see, they make you slaves of whichever regime is in power. I couldn't take that either. So I wanted my mind to remain free, unencumbered, even if it meant not being very successful or not going places.
Yeah, well, you are well known all over the world. Let me ask you another question, which is, given the diversity within the Indic faith traditions, what role do you think these traditions play in promoting interfaith harmony and understanding?
You've stirred the hornet's nest.
Okay.
See, Indic faith, what for me is the most uplifting aspect of why call it Indic? Let's call it Hindu faith traditions. Sanatan Dharma based faith traditions, or those who are offshoots, are punts within the overall rubric of Sanatan Dharma.
Right.
Firstly, this is the only knowledge-seeking faith tradition. Faith is not blind. The great emphasis on knowledge, and in fact, all our Shastras, or even the Vedas, now people are recognizing that even with regard to the origin of the universe, the placement of stars, moons, distance from Earth to sun to moon, and the entire cosmic world and the way what's guiding it. If anyone is engaged with that and come up with reasonably scientific answers, it's Sanatan Dharma and its many traditional texts. So that's one very, very uplifting, that there are no boundaries. There's no thus far, no more. Secondly, accepting others despite differences comes so spontaneously and naturally to Sanatan Dharmis. And I found it always very, very enabling. I mean, which one of the reasons I could never turn anti-Hindu, even when I was rebellious in 100 other ways, is because I never saw it come in my way.
Correct.
Neither my family ever said, you can't do this because this Shastra says that, or because this text says that, or because Shankaracharya ji said that. The only word, the only sentence I heard, even among the most conservative communities, is we do it this way. Never, why should everybody not do it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
For example, what are permissible relationships in marriage? North, South have enormous differences. Family structure. We've had matrilineal family, we had patrilineal family, we've had many different formations of how to structure a healthy family system. And extended family that, incorporates several, not just multi-generational, 3-4 generations living together under the same roof, but also considering cousins and aunts and their relatives and so on and so forth, those extended group as part of your family. Now, the point that I would like to emphasize that there's so many different ways in which you can organize your family. Each region, each community was left to decide. More importantly, also how to manage conflict resolution.
Right.
Very sophisticated ways of handling conflict resolution within the Hindu tradition. It's never my way or the highway. It's based on consensus, always, even our traditional panchayat system. And intrafamily resolutions also came through panchayats, just decided for that purpose, which are the 5 respect-worthy people whose voice can be trusted. Thirdly, there's no sense of otherness in us. It's also become our undoing. There are those who will not only consider us other, but worth slaughter. And we kept wanting to embrace them in the most suicidal ways. Ishwar Allah Tero Naam. We said it for 1,000 years. They will not say it even once.
Absolutely.
Now, that part is at one level very inspiring. The fact that even where Hindu dharma-rooted rulers held sway, they never destroyed a single masjid. They never destroyed a single church. In fact, they gave space for even the most nano minorities like Jews or
Parsis.
Whoever came here was given full respect and full freedom to pursue their paths. But they never, these Abrahamics never respected that. They thought we were fools.
Mhm.
And I think that foolish aspect has to be fixed. But the multiplicity, also, I find it very inspiring that you can conceptualize the divine in any way you like. You know, तुलसीदास की famous lines, जाकी रही भावना जैसी, प्रभु मूरत तिन देखी तैसी. There are any number of deities and new deities taking avatar all the time. Like Manushi has its Swachh Narayani that we worship, broom-wielding goddess with a camera in one hand and a weighing tarazu in another hand. We'll talk about Swachh Narayani some other way. Now, if I start worshipping the broom as my revered deity, nobody's going to know. Shankaracharya is going to come and say, how dare you do that? There are temples to snakes, to, you know, where rats run around, Karni Devi temple. There are temples where दूध का चढ़ावा है. There are temples where धतूरे का चढ़ावा है. कोई भगवान लड्डू खाता है तो कोई
दूध पीता है तो
दूध कुछ भी.
Absolutely.
So this easy acceptance of diversity, never wanting others to be subservient to your viewpoint, and saying, okay, you do it your way, so long as you let me do it my way.
Right.
That is why for thousands of years, those they now call as tribals, who are supposed to be different from us, they call as so many jats and, you know, castes, so many castes that they think we are supposed to have oppressed. The truth is that the names of these tribes, so-called, we didn't call them tribes, that's not our term. The names of these communities are mentioned way back in Ramayana, in Mahabharata.
Correct.
In the Mahabharata war, you know, from the northeast, from Afghanistan side, from south, from east, they all came to take part in the war, or to lend support in other ways. And they maintained their culture, their languages, their ways of being without disruption for thousands of years. Now, just 200 years of British rule and their culture is destroyed. 100 years or 50 years of Christianity and you can't recognize them for who they are. They become cheap copies of American youth. There's nothing Naga or Kuki left about them. And we never allowed anybody to go destroy anybody's or put down anybody's culture. And that's Sanatana Dharma, accepting people for what they are, their cherished belief systems.
Very well said.
Without being contemptuous towards them.
Well said. So, Manushi, I've got time only for one more question. And I'm going to now ask you to give me your perspective for the young, because a very large number of our viewers are very, very young. When I say young, under 34. What future direction do you foresee for the understanding of Indian civilizations and faith traditions, especially for the younger generation?
See, we are right now at a point when it's a do or die battle. Let's face this harsh reality. Demography is destiny. And today, in what is left of India, after partitions and Islamization of large part of what was part of the Indic civilization or Hindu civilization, we are truly an endangered species. If any two groups are endangered in this world today, it's the Jews and the Hindus.
Hindus, absolutely.
Because the Islamists as well as the Christians are very angry with us for having remained us. Even in a shrunken and in a destroyed, devastated state. I mean, in one sense, we are living amidst the ruins of Hindu civilization. It's not a flourishing it's not a flourishing, deeply rooted in this civilization. Now, the roots have been very severely damaged. And today, very few young people know what it means to be a Hindu. There are
Right.
many more political Hindus. So people think if they vote for BJP,
Mm.
they are Hindu.
Yeah.
Or if they join RSS Shakha, they become Hindu. No.
Mm.
Hindu Dharma is altogether a different ecosystem.
Right.
It has no place for party politics, especially party politics that is divisive of society.
Mm.
The fact is, party politics, no matter where it's gone, this majoritarian democracy
Mm.
that we consider one of the greatest achievements of humankind,
Mm.
has went and torn asunder every society
Very true.
because it splits and divides society into majority vote and minority vote, and then pitches parties against each other, who then divide society in order to mobilize vote banks.
Mm.
So the point that I'm trying to make is that Dharmic Hindus are a very micro minority or nano minority within the larger Hindu community. And their voices are not getting heard. You see today, even our Shankracharyas are derided if they dare express their views,
Yeah.
which are contrary to the political wisdom of this or that party.
Right.
It's not done. You engage with them, you differ with them, but you don't insult them, you don't abuse them in the way we do. Also, political parties have tried to capture these seats of power, just as they've captured many traditional institutions. Gurdwaras, mandirs are under government control. We don't control them. Bureaucrats and politicians control them. But Shankaracharya also. This one is Congressy Shankaracharya, that one is Bhajpai Shankaracharya. I mean, if this is how you're going to treat Dharma gurus, then it's the road to suicide and self-annihilation, at least from a dharmic perspective.
Yeah.
So I think it all depends on whether we are willing to face up to the dangers that both Islam and Christianity pose before us, because their open agenda is decimate us.
Right.
There's no bones about it.
Absolutely.
Planting churches, they're planting mosques, they're carrying out conversions on a very large scale, very rapid pace. And conversion essentially means not just one more Christian or one more Muslim, but one more person committed to destroying Hindu Dharma and the civilization. Then their statements are open about it. Now, are we willing to say enough is enough? We've faced this for 1200 years. We're not willing to face any more. And that Hindu Dharma and civilization cannot survive in the shadow of Islam or Christianity. Not because we don't know how to coexist peacefully. We've tried our best for 1200 years. But you don't believe in coexistence. You believe in decimation and humiliation. And Sartan se juda, Christianity in its own way has caused genocides wherever it went.
Absolutely.
Cultural genocides, physical genocides. Now, is this the price we are going to pay for our liberalism in order to prove we are inclusive? No. I think Hindu Dharma has to be reinvented for this day and age, because our traditional dharmic wisdom evolved at a time when there were no such enemies out to decimate us. Islam had not taken birth, Christianity had not descended on world stage, and the history is genocidal. Are we willing to acknowledge it and say enough? We cannot coexist, not because of us, but because your ideologies and your past history doesn't allow you to do that. And stand up for a safe space where alone Hindu Dharma then can prosper.
Very well said. Madhuji, my conversation with you is just so fascinating and amazing. I could just keep on talking to you, but unfortunately, I'm running out of time in this particular conversation, and I know I'm going to come back to you for more conversations. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. Thank you for speaking to me about Manushi, and I'm going to pick up Manushi and start subscribing to it. Thank you for speaking to me about Indic faith. We didn't get a chance to go through too much detail, but I think you have started to sow some seeds of curiosity that will be picked up amongst the viewers and listeners, and I'm sure they will come back with lots of questions. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much for having me on your show, and I look forward to further conversations.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.